My daughter called me a deadbeat dad to her future in-laws, right to their faces, and then had the absolute audacity to demand that I stay silent about it, act like nothing happened. Can you even imagine that level of disrespect? I'm still reeling from it, wondering if I'm some kind of cosmic punching bag. Seriously, I need to know, was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me if you would have just sat there and taken that kind of humiliation. Because I just couldn't. I really truly couldn't. It's been a whirlwind, a complete catastrophe that's torn my family apart, and honestly, I don't even recognize the person my daughter has become. I look back now, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong, how we got to this point, and it feels like a slow-motion car crash I saw coming, but was powerless to stop. This whole mess started brewing a few months ago, maybe even longer, when my daughter Clara announced her engagement to Mark. Mark comes from money, old money, the kind of family that has generational wealth and an air of quiet superiority that practically radiates from them. We, on the other hand, are pretty solidly middle class. I've worked hard my entire life, put in long hours, skipped vacations, done everything I could to provide for Clara and her mother. My ex-wife, Sarah, and I divorced when Clara was just 8. It was amicable enough, or so I thought at the time. We both agreed to prioritize Clara, to co-parent effectively. I paid child support religiously, often more than required, and always made sure Clara had everything she needed and wanted, within reason. I remember countless weekends spent at the park, building elaborate Lego castles, helping with homework, attending every single school play and parent-teacher conference. I was there. I was always there. After the divorce, Sarah got the house, and I moved into a smaller apartment. My financial situation became tighter, but I never let Clara feel the pinch. If she wanted to go on a school trip, I found the money. If she needed new clothes, I took her shopping. I always tried to make her feel loved and secure. Despite the changes in our family dynamic, Sarah eventually remarried a few years later to David, a seemingly good guy who also had a decent job. David was kind to Clara, and I genuinely appreciated that. I never felt threatened by his presence. I just wanted my daughter to be happy. Clara seemed to adjust well to having a stepfather, and our relationship, hers and mine, remained strong. Or so I believed. Fast forward to her engagement. Clara was ecstatic, and I was genuinely happy for her. Mark seemed like a decent young man, a bit reserved, but clearly devoted to Clara. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, were formidable. They were polite, yes, but there was an underlying current of judgment in their eyes, a subtle scrutiny that made me feel like I was constantly being evaluated. I tried my best to make a good impression. I dressed in my best suit, practiced my conversation starters, and genuinely looked forward to meeting them properly at the engagement dinner Clara had planned. This dinner was a big deal. It was going to be at a fancy restaurant, selected by the Thompsons, of course, and it was the first formal gathering where both families would officially meet. Clara had been stressing about it for weeks, wanting everything to be perfect. She'd called me multiple times, asking for advice on what to wear, what to say, how to act. I reassured her, told her to just be herself, and that everything would be fine. Little did I know, being herself for Clara now meant something entirely different. The evening started pleasantly enough. We exchanged pleasantries, made small talk about the weather and the dreadful traffic. Mr. Thompson, a tall man with a stern face, and Mrs. Thompson, elegant and impeccably dressed, were cordial if a little stiff. Sarah and David were there too, and it felt like a slightly awkward reunion of divorced parents at a school function, amplified by the presence of the formidable in-laws. We ordered our appetizers, and the conversation flowed somewhat stiltedly. Then, Mrs. Thompson turned to Clara, her voice dripping with polite curiosity, and asked, "Clara dear, you've mentioned your father works in finance, correct?" What exactly is his role? I work as an accountant for a mid-sized firm. It's a respectable job, provides a comfortable living, but it's certainly not the kind of high-flying, private jet-owning finance world the Thompsons probably envisioned. Before I could even open my mouth to answer, Clara interjected, and this is where my world started to crumble. She looked at her future mother-in-law, then glanced at me with a fleeting, almost imperceptible flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. Was it embarrassment, shame, or something colder? And she said, "Oh, Daddy, he's more of a sort of deadbeat. He was never really around after the divorce. My real dad, David, stepped up. He's the one who taught me everything, who supported Mom and me financially." The words hit me like a physical blow. Deadbeat, never really around. My real dad, David. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I sat there, stunned, my fork clattering against my plate. The blood drained from my face, and I could feel my ears burning. A deadbeat? After everything? All those sacrifices, all those hours, all that love. Sarah gasped, a small choked sound, and shot Clara a horrified look. David, bless his heart, looked incredibly uncomfortable and tried to intervene. "Clara, that's not fair. Your father..." But Clara cut him off. A bright, fake smile plastered on her face as she turned back to the Thompsons. "Oh no, it's fine. We're all very open in our family. My biological father just wasn't really present. It was tough on Mom, but David really saved us. He's been my rock." The Thompsons, bless their cold, judgmental hearts, exchanged a glance. It was a subtle glance, almost imperceptible to anyone not looking for it, but I saw it. It was a look that said, "Ah, so this is the truth about him. Figures." They were probably thinking I was some kind of freeloading loser, completely unfit to be associated with their esteemed family. The conversation lurched forward, but I was no longer a part of it. My mind was reeling, deadbeat, after everything I'd done, after pouring my heart and soul, my limited finances, my entire being into raising her. This was my reward. This public humiliation, this deliberate tearing down of my character in front of people whose opinion clearly mattered to her more than my feelings ever could. I felt a surge of betrayal so profound, it stole my breath. I wanted to scream, to stand up and expose her for the manipulative, ungrateful person she was being in that moment. But I was frozen, trapped in a nightmare. Eventually dinner ended. The goodbyes were stilted. I managed to nod politely to the Thompsons, barely meeting their eyes. As we were leaving the restaurant, Clara pulled me aside, a frantic look on her face. "Dad," she whispered, her voice urgent. "Please don't say anything. Don't ruin this for me. They're really important. Just pretend it didn't happen. Please. Pretend it didn't happen." After she just annihilated my reputation, effectively erased my entire contribution to her life, and labeled me a deadbeat to the most important people in her future. She wanted me to just sweep it under the rug, to be complicit in her lie, to protect her image at the expense of my own dignity. That was the moment something snapped inside me. It wasn't just anger. It was a deep, aching wound that festered into a cold resolve. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stayed silent, swallowed your pride for the sake of your daughter's future? Or would you have stood up for yourself, even if it meant risking everything? I'm genuinely curious to know your thoughts, because in that moment, I felt utterly alone. I stared at Clara, her frantic, pleading eyes, and for the first time, I saw not my loving daughter, but a calculating stranger. All those years, all those sacrifices, all that unconditional love, it meant nothing to her in the face of her social ambition. My heart hardened. "Pretend it didn't happen," I said, my voice dangerously low. a stark contrast to the buzzing in my head. Clara, you just called me a deadbeat dad, completely disrespected me, and undermined every single thing I've ever done for you, to people who are clearly judging me, and you want me to pretend it didn't happen, to enable your lie. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of fear replacing the urgency. Dad, please, just this once. It's so important for my future, for Mark's family to approve of me. Your future. I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. What about my future? What about my dignity? You think I'm just gonna let you walk all over me? Let you rewrite history, just so you can climb the social ladder? Not a chance. You'll ruin everything, she hissed, her voice barely audible but laced with venom. If you say anything, you'll be the one to blame. Blame for what, Clara? I asked, stepping closer to her, my voice still quiet but firm. Blame for telling the truth. Blame for not being a doormat. You want to know what a deadbeat looks like? It looks like someone who would betray their own father for social currency. And you know what? If that's what you think of me, then maybe you don't need me at your wedding at all. Her face went pale. What are you saying? I'm saying, I continued, a cold clarity settling over me, that if you truly believe I'm a deadbeat, then I shouldn't be involved in your wedding plans. I shouldn't walk you down the aisle. I shouldn't be at the father-daughter dance. Because a deadbeat wouldn't do those things, would he? The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Clara stared at me, her mouth slightly agape, a mix of shock and disbelief warring on her face. Sarah, who had been listening from a slight distance, rushed over, her face etched with concern. What's going on? She asked, looking between us. Clara just made it very clear that David is her real dad, and I'm just a deadbeat who was never around. I stated calmly, deliberately, my gaze fixed on Clara. So I informed her that if that's her honest assessment of me, then she shouldn't expect me to play the role of a father at her wedding. I won't pretend for her convenience. Sarah whirled on Clara, her face now a mask of fury. Clara, what did you do? How could you say such a thing? Clara stammered. Mom, it was just, I was trying to impress them. They're so judgmental, and I didn't want them to think Dad was not good enough. Not good enough. Sarah shrieked, her voice rising. He worked his fingers to the bone for you. He gave you everything. He was there for every single milestone. And you threw it all away just to impress some snobs. Honor David, who had been trying to mediate, finally stepped in, putting a hand on Sarah's arm. Sarah, let's calm down. This isn't the place. But it was too late. The damage was done, the truth was out, and the raw emotions were spilling over. Clara burst into tears, not of remorse, I suspected, but of anger and frustration that her carefully constructed facade was crumbling. You're ruining everything, she sobbed, looking at me with pure hatred. I hate you. That cut deeper than the deadbeat comment, deeper than anything. My own daughter, saying she hated me because I dared to stand up for myself. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw a person I no longer recognized. A stranger consumed by ambition and a shallow desire for approval. I simply shook my head. No, Clara, I said, my voice weary now, the fight draining from me. You ruined everything, not me. I turned and walked away, leaving her with Sarah and David. I got into my car and drove home, the silence in the vehicle screaming louder than any argument. The next few days were a blur of texts and calls. Sarah was furious with Clara, but also tried to mediate between us, begging me to reconsider, to not let this ruin the wedding. Clara, on the other hand, was initially defiant, then tried to apologize. But her apology felt hollow, laced with an underlying resentment that I wasn't playing along with her narrative. She kept saying, I didn't mean it, Dad. I just got caught up. But I knew she meant it on some level. She meant it enough to say it, to believe it was acceptable, to throw me under the bus for her own gain. I held firm. I told Sarah that I wouldn't be attending the wedding as a participant. I would go as a guest, sit in the back, but I would not walk Clara down the aisle. I could not, in good conscience, play the role of the loving father when she had so publicly disowned me. It felt like a betrayal of myself, a betrayal of all the years I had truly been there for her. The news predictably spread through both families. The Thompsons, I later heard, were quite put out, seeing it as some sort of uncouth drama. Mark, to his credit, was caught in the middle. He called me, sounding genuinely distressed, and apologized on Clara's behalf. He understood why I was upset, he said, but begged me to reconsider for Clara's sake. I told him my decision was firm. Clara eventually had to tell the Thompsons that David would be walking her down the aisle. She spun some story about me being unwell or having a prior engagement. But I knew the truth was a festering wound in their perception of our family. The wedding day came. I went. I sat in the very last row, a silent observer. David, looking uncomfortable but gracious, walked Clara down the aisle. She looked beautiful, radiant even, but every time I caught her eye, there was a flicker of something unreadable. Resentment, regret, maybe even a touch of fear. During the reception, I made polite conversation with a few distant relatives, but mostly kept to myself. I didn't participate in the father-daughter dance, a void that was keenly felt by those who knew the history. David stepped in again, dancing with Clara, and it felt like another nail in the coffin of my relationship with her. The aftermath has been difficult. Clara and I are estranged. She rarely calls, and when she does, it's strained, superficial. She still expects me to act like nothing happened, to just move on. But how can I? The trust is shattered. The love I felt for her, while not gone, is deeply, deeply wounded. Sarah is still upset with Clara, but she also thinks I should have just taken the high road for the sake of family harmony. She doesn't understand that for me, the high road meant standing up for myself, for the truth, for my own worth. David has been incredibly supportive of me, which has been a strange and unexpected comfort. He knows what I did for Clara, and he feels terrible about how she behaved. The Thompsons, well, they probably still think I'm some kind of deadbeat, but at least I didn't lie to myself anymore. This whole situation has taught me a painful lesson about how quickly people can discard you when it suits their agenda. It's made me question everything I thought I knew about my daughter, about our relationship. I gave her everything, and she threw it back in my face, called me worthless, and then demanded my silence. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't pretend to be someone I'm not, and I couldn't let her rewrite my story. So, there it is, my side of the story. I still replay that dinner scene in my head, the look on her face, the casual way she dismissed years of my life. I often wonder if she truly understands the depth of the pain she inflicted, or if she's just moved on, oblivious to the chasm she created. What do you all think? Like this video if you are on my side. If you believe I did the right thing by standing up for myself. Subscribe for more stories like this. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below. I truly need to hear your perspectives. I'll see you all in the next story.